Travel Television is honored to have Senator Harris Wofford, who has a long history in the civil rights and service movements. During the Kennedy era, Senator Wofford worked with Sergeant Shriver to create the Peace Corps, and 50 years later, he continues to be a leader for community and national service. Thank you, Senator Wofford, for joining us today. Can you share a story from your time with the President?
Sergeant Shriver was the civil rights man of the campaign, and I was his deputy. And out of the blue, a member of our civil rights section called to say, my daughter's at the University of Michigan, and last night after midnight, going on till 1 and 2 o'clock, waiting for Kennedy, he came and gave a talk that suggested that he might want to ask young people to go overseas and serve America in different ways there. And he pushed the question, would you go? And it was when the Kennedy car heard the story that 1,000 students were saying yes to this extemporaneous question he put, that he turned to Ted Sorensen, the great major speechwriter for him, and said, this is hot, let's make a big proposal for it. The speech got drafted and delivered to the Cow Palace in San Francisco to 10,000 or so people.
We cannot discontinue training our young men as soldiers of war, but we also want them to be ambassadors of peace.
In one sense, Sergeant Shriver and I both said, this is really going to work, isn't it? But we had nothing to do with it until after the election. Kennedy, at the inaugural parade, said, you know, this idea of a Peace Corps that I proposed out in Michigan, you're the person to Sergeant Shriver. You know, Sarge, you're the one to propose and build this Peace Corps. And by then I had such a faith in Shriver. So there'd be two ways when I thought it was going to be a real part of American life. I went off to Africa by the request of the President to be the Peace Corps representative in Africa. I was working in the White House on civil rights with him. And he and I agreed that I would go to Ethiopia, where the emperor had said, we want 500 Peace Corps teachers, which we produced in due course. And a great new university had been built, a lot of American money going into it, but they didn't have enough coming out of schools that were ready to go to college. And so they urgently needed teachers.
Did you have a particular inspiration or vision when you started out?
What got me onto this whole concept of full-time national service was being on a ship. There were these young men who just started singing, and I cornered one of them, and I said, you know, what are you all up to, about 15 or 20? They said, we're Mormons. If you're a Mormon man, it's not a question of do you do service, but where, at home or abroad. And I remember turning to the woman in due course married me, and I said, you know, that's what we should do for all Americans, not just one group of people doing it. And I still believe that, but it was an accident that those singers sang. And so no telling what accidents you and I can still have.
So in 2016, we celebrate the launch of the Service Year Alliance. So please tell us about this new initiative and how people can be a part of it.
General McChrystal came home from the Middle Eastern wars and turned his thoughts on the state of citizenship and patriotism of America at home out at a Aspen Institute, Colorado conference on what we should do better in this country. General McChrystal got up and said, I think that we should have full-time service years, the way we have military service years. It's so easy for me to imagine, for example, that most colleges and universities would adopt this.
It's why volunteering in America is at the highest level it's been in years. And I know that makes Harris proud to hear. Now, Harris Wofford's devoted his entire life to creating opportunities for Americans to serve. And the reason it's such a privilege for me to share the stage with him is because you've taken commitment to a whole new level.
Harris Wofford has spent more than 50 years empowering ordinary citizens to make extraordinary change. A friend to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and an advisor to President John F. Kennedy, Harris fought alongside civil rights leaders to end segregation and advance the march of justice. During his time at the White House, with the Peace Corps, as a senator, and leading the Corporation for National and Community Service, he gave generations of Americans the chance to serve their country. The United States honors Harris Wofford for upholding national service as one of our nation's highest causes.
So I hope that what a lot of people out of the experience will take the ball and run with that. I can't run anymore. I have to admit, at age 90, it's not a running time. But for what I can do, the ball I would be trying to carry right now would be the service year.
All right, thank you so much, Senator Wofford. We really appreciate you being here. For Travel Television, I'm Carrie Keenan.